In this talk on dreams, I would like to cover briefly the historical context of dreams and then move on to how we use dreams in practical application in Eckankar. The earliest manuscript that we have on dreams is an Egyptian papyrus which is in the British Museum dating back to 3,500 to 4,000 years ago. There's interpretations for about 150 dreams on this papyrus, and it divides them into negative and positive dreams. Now, one of the dream symbols in this is if you dream of a window in your dreams, it's regarded as a positive symbol for the future. To come to the more recent times, in the Roman and Greek era, dreams were more classed in the area of predicting the future, something much like the soothsayers used to do. Now, in the time of Augustus, he introduced the profession of professional dreamers, which were under the control of the state. Now, if any of those dreamers had a dream which was detrimental either to the empire or to the emperor, the dreamer was executed before it came into the public domain. This was to preserve the empire from negative influences which were coming from the subconscious area. Now, to move into the more modern era, we have the famous mythologist Joseph Campbell, who gave a quote on dreams which goes like, "Mythology is a public dream, and a dream is a private myth." Some of the contemporaries of Campbell were William James, Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, who dealt extensively in their work on the subconscious area in relation to dreams. Now, Jung was more into the area of the subconscious than Freud. Freud was of the opinion that dreams were by and large wish fulfillments, things that we didn't get to do in the physical we managed to accomplish in the dream state, which was a more free and liberated state than the waking consciousness that we experience in our everyday life. Now, Jung went more into the deeper levels of the subconscious, and he came up with an idea of the collective consciousness, or the archetypes of the collective consciousness. And one of the examples of the archetypes he was looking into was the shadow, which we can experience in the dream state. The shadow is the darker aspects of ourselves which we don't like to look at, and which we prefer to suppress in normal waking consciousness. But these can come to light in our dreams. Now, in medieval times, this would be before Freud and Jung, the dream area was not encouraged that much to be looked into by the church, mainly the Christian era in medieval times, because dating back to the Gnostic times, this gave the individual access to the spiritual realms without having to go through a priest, and was considered to be a threat to the power of the church, so it was discouraged in this way. Now we do have from the Christian area in the Bible some, it will be in the Old Testament mainly, some passages on dreams. We have the famous one of Joseph in Egypt interpreting the Pharaoh's dreams of the 7 fat cows and the 7 lean cows, which predicted a period of famine to last for 7 years after a period of plenty of 7 years, so that the Pharaoh of the time was able to arrange provisions during the plentiful years which would tide him over the leaner years. This led Joseph to become a famous personage in the Egyptian era. Now coming closer to the Christian era, we have the dream of Jacob, where he saw in a dream lying out in the wilderness on a rock angels coming up and down a ladder to heaven. But in the actual Gospels, I can't find any reference of Christ himself having made any comment about dreams, although in the modern era we do have instances of Christ appearing in the dreams of modern people, of which I had an experience myself, which I relate later, but in the actual Gospels themselves they don't seem to cover dreams at all. But let us move on to the modern era. Seems to be preoccupied with the interpretation of dreams as well, because we have a proliferation of books on the interpretation of dreams. Now to move on to the Eckankar use of dreams. In Eckankar we realize dreams as being experiences in the inner worlds. These are the worlds we go to when we leave the physical. You can call them heaven if you like. So that the experiences we have as Eggists are the movement of consciousness in the sleep state into those worlds and having experiences in those worlds. Now to set the tone for the interpretation of, well, not interpretation of dreams so much as the use of dreams in everyday life, I'd like to read a passage from the Shariat, Ki Sugma, Book 2, The Way of the Eternal, written by Paul Twitchell. These are the scriptures of Eckankar, and this reading is taken from chapter 9 in Book 2 about the Eckmaster Lightsey. Now Lightsey is a master who is the guardian of the Shariat on the subconscious level. Now since this is the area which dreams come from a lot of the time, although they can come from lower regions as well, I find it interesting to take something from this chapter. Now the reading is on the window of heaven, as we in Eckankar look upon dreams as a window to heaven. Too much talk means too much exhaustion, so it is far better to keep your thoughts to yourself. Silence is golden, for it brings to the seeker more than gold. It brings him the heavenly treasures which cannot be measured in gold and silver. But man seeks too much the gold and silver of the world when he should be seeking the window of heaven, through which, when opened, all treasures that he believes were possible will now come pouring to him. The treasures of heaven are not merely gold and silver, but the treasures of soul, the peace, contentment, and happiness which come with the opening of the window of heaven. None will know this until each has a glimpse of the broad skies and the beautiful gardens, the running waters, and the wonderful colours of the world beyond by the opening of the window. Now, I have always been blessed by a rich dream life, even from childhood. One of the earliest dreams I recall were the end of the world dreams. Now, I used to have those on a recurring basis at the end of the church year when the readings dealt with the end of the world and the second coming. Now, what one of those dreams would be something like, I would be looking outside and something would start changing with the sky, and I'd realise it was the end of the world. So one of those times in the dream state now, I said to my family, "Come out quick, it's the end of the world." And we went outside and we started rising up into the sky to meet Jesus and Mary coming back. But the end of the world has been predicted so many times, and it hasn't happened yet, that I have come to the conclusion that it has been postponed indefinitely. Now, one of the other dreams which came, I take this now from the writings of Sri Harclent, the Art of Spiritual Dreaming, is an example which he gave of a dream which one of the eight ladies had with Light Sea as the guide for this dream. This is to do with the effect of fear upon us consciously and subconsciously. This lady had compassion for ex-convict and decided to invite him into her home when he was released from prison. But he began to treat her badly in the home, and things were going from bad to worse. And he invited some of his mates in as well, so things were getting into a really rough state for her, and she was having no peace and contentment in her home at all. So the next day she consulted with Light Sea as to what was the meaning of this dream, and he said to her, "This is the effect that you have in your consciousness when you allow fear to enter, either consciously or subconsciously, that you allow fear to dominate." Now, this is something we come up against when we start moving into the inner worlds. We're afraid to leave the physical body. Now, in the early stages of moving into the God worlds, we have the sensation of travelling, which we classify as soul travel in Ekankar. But as we move along, this sensation of travelling disappears altogether, and we move into a state where we go instantaneously from one state of consciousness to the other state of consciousness, so that there is no movement at all experienced. But the experience when we get there is just the same as if we had actually moved from one state to another, either through a window, if you want to look at it that way, or through a tunnel, or just appearing to move through space itself. Now, one of the recurring dreams which I used to have as a child was I would be being chased by a bull. I'd get to reach home and run into the house and try and close the door behind me, but the door would only close about halfway, it wouldn't fully close, so that I had to actually stand and face the bull that was chasing me. The bull became confused when I stopped and faced him, because he thought to himself, you should be running away, you shouldn't be stopping and facing me. But this is something we have to do with our fears in the dream state or in a waking state as well. We have to confront the things we are afraid of so that they don't have domination over us anymore. Now, as well as this, you may actually have to have a shouting match in the dream state with somebody who is trying to dominate you, either in the dream state or in the waking state. Now, when you have one of those shouting matches, it does tend to resolve to some degree the problems that you have with the person who is trying to dominate you and not allow you to have your own free will. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the dream censor. The dream censor is part of our mind which doesn't allow to come true from either the dream state, normally the dream state, something that would be too shocking to us in our normal waking state. This can have to do with a lot of the things that belong to the shadow area of ourselves, the negative things that are actually a part of us we don't like to either think about or face up to. But these are things that we do have to face up to if we are going to progress spiritually. There's a lot of habits that we have that we have to drop, and one of those would be anger. Now, there is another aspect of the dream areas that we cover in I Think Aries to have dreams of what's going to happen in the future. Now, these type of dreams, I would say, take a temperature of what's going to happen rather than give an actual solid prediction of what's going to happen, because there is the element of free will always that comes into this. Now, one of the examples of this I had myself is that a relative of mine, I dreamed he had a heart attack, but in the physical he went to his doctor, and his doctor gave him some advice, as to the diet that he was on and the dangers of the diet that he was on. So he actually changed his habits so that he didn't have a heart attack, and even today he's still in pretty good physical shape. Now, there was a current dream which I had, which I want to cover, which shows some idea of the way the spiritual gets through to us in the dream state. I was asked by a friend who is a co-worker with me in the factory that I work in, to assist him. He is an electrician actually, and I would be a qualified electrician myself, but he asked me to do some work on a wiring setup on the top of a wall. Now, this work involved climbing a ladder to a fair height and working on some cables which are on top of this wall. but it was only in preparation for work that he was going to do himself on it. Now later on he asked me to assist him in painting a wall white in the same building. Now this idea of painting the wall white is a pointer towards the pure spiritual worlds in Eckankar, which the colour of the light is generally either a pale yellow or white, and the meaning of the friend named Hugh being the personage involved in this dream was that the hue is the key which we use in Eckankar to get to those spiritual worlds. So I'll leave it at that, and just to synopsize what I covered was I dealt briefly with a history of dreams, and covered the area that we use dreams for some practical application in our normal everyday lives in Eckankar.